A federal grand jury just unsealed an indictment against a crew so violent they literally executed a man just for slamming a door. But that isn't even the craziest reason they killed someone. Meet the Crown Hill Enterprise, a group of 12 people in Indy who federal prosecutors say were running a massive 28-count racketeering empire. We're talking fentanyl, meth, kidnapping, and arson. But the details in this paperwork are wild. Prosecutors say they ran stash houses with absolute zero tolerance. One man accidentally slammed the door inside a stash house, and they allegedly executed him on the spot just for that. They also tracked down another guy over a drug debt. Want to guess how much he owed? $40. They shot him over $40. So what was the craziest reason they took someone out? It turns out they didn't even need a reason at all. Prosecutors say they were trafficking illegal firearms just to keep a constant war going on the streets. The feds just hit all 12 members with RICO charges, meaning they are looking at life behind bars. Do you think RICO laws are enough to stop crews like this? Drop a comment and let me know.
And that's when Malik realized the police weren't the real problem anymore. By the time the black Charger slid around the corner, the neighborhood was already quiet. Too quiet. In Rocktown, people learned early that silence usually meant somebody was either hiding or waiting. Malik was only 17 when the older guys started letting him make blips. At first, it felt harmless. Quick pickups, small money, watching corners, carrying phones that didn't belong to him. The kind of things teenagers convince themselves aren't really crimes yet. But that night was different. The package he picked up near Mercer Homes wasn't supposed to move until morning. Everybody knew that, which meant somebody had changed the plan at the last second. And in Rocktown, last-second changes usually meant one thing. Somebody was talking. Malik had a feeling he was being followed. He could feel it. The tension, the paranoia. Who was it? Jack boys? Police? Maybe the feds? Malik was about to learn that loyalty disappears fast when prison enters the conversation.
The streets always talk about enemies, but sometimes the real danger is the person sitting at your table. October 6th, 2003, back of the Yards, Chicago. 3 men pulled up to a first-floor apartment on South Carpenter Street. One checked the window. 2 covered their faces. The third didn't bother. He already knew the people inside. When the shooting stopped, Motown OG Charles G. Red Edwards III was dead in his kitchen. His young son was found in the bedroom still wearing pajamas. The bodies weren't discovered until the next afternoon. G. Red wasn't just another name from the streets. According to neighbors and family, he helped people, gave advice, and carried influence throughout Motown despite being paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair after an earlier shooting years before. In Back of the Yards, his words still carried weight. What makes the story colder is this. The man accused in the streets of setting him up was somebody G. Red trusted like family, somebody he treated like a son. More than 20 years later, the case still hangs over the neighborhood like unfinished business. No public murder conviction, no closure. Just another Chicago story where loyalty and betrayal lived on the same block. How do you protect yourself when the danger already knows your back door?
What if nearly 300 years of history never actually happened? It's called the Phantom Time Theory, one of the strangest historical conspiracies ever created. The theory claims that the years between 614 AD and 911 AD were completely fabricated by rulers, historians, and the Catholic Church. According to the conspiracy, Holy Roman Emperor Otto III and Pope Sylvester II supposedly altered the calendar so Otto could rule during the symbolic year 1000, meaning humanity might actually be living in the 1700s instead of the 2000s. Supporters point to missing archaeological evidence in parts of Europe, strange gaps in historical records, and questions surrounding the life of Charlemagne. Some even claim certain medieval buildings and events don't line up with the timeline we're taught in school. Historians overwhelmingly reject the theory, saying records from Asia, the Middle East, eclipses, and astronomy completely disprove it. But online, the theory refuses to die. So let me ask you this. If governments could erase or invent centuries of history. Would we even know?
A small farm in Germany, 1922. 6 people dead, and the killer may have stayed inside the house with the bodies for days. The Gruber family started noticing strange things weeks before the murders. Footsteps in the attic, a newspaper nobody recognized, keys disappearing. Then one night, the entire family, including 2 children and the maid, vanished. Neighbors got suspicious when the family stopped showing up to church. When they finally entered the farm, they found all 6 victims brutally murdered with a mattock, one by one. But here's where it gets terrifying. Someone had fed the animals after the killings. Meals had been eaten in the kitchen. Smoke still came from the chimney. Investigators believe the killer stayed in the farmhouse for several days, sleeping beside the bodies. To this day, nobody knows who did it. Some blamed a jealous lover. Others believed it was a family member. And some think the killer was hiding in the attic the entire time before the murders even happened. One farmhouse, one family wiped out, and a killer who may have been watching them for weeks. What do you think happened at Hinterkaifeck?
Before the mafia, before the modern street crews, New York had the 5 Points, one of the roughest neighborhoods in America. And out of that chaos came one of the most legendary gang names in street history, the Dead Rabbits. They were mostly Irish immigrants and Irish Americans, fighting for survival, territory, politics, and respect in Lower Manhattan during the 1800s. Their rivals were the Bowery Boys, a nativist gang that hated the growing Irish Catholic population. The legend says the name came after a dead rabbit was thrown into a gang meeting, and the members took it as a sign. Their symbol became a dead rabbit on a stick, carried like a warning. In July 1857, tensions exploded into the Dead Rabbits riot, a 2-day street war tied to 5 Points gangs, Bowery rivals, politics, and police chaos. But here's the twist. Some historians argue the Dead Rabbits may have been exaggerated or misidentified over time. So were they a real gang, or New York's first criminal myth?
2020, Brooklyn drill ruled New York, but a more aggressive, sample-heavy subgenre was brewing in the Bronx. It was faster, more disrespectful, and entirely fueled by a neighborhood proxy war between 2 teenagers, D-Thang Jeezy and K-Flock. The opening shot came from River Park Towers. Representing the YGZ Alliance, 18-year-old D-Thang Jeezy dropped tracks like Caution and Talk Facts. He brought a hypnotic contrast to drill, using a high-pitched melodic voice to deliver devastating, direct disses. The retaliation from the DOA Alliance was instant. Enter K-Flock from Sev's side. If D-Thang was taunting and slick, K-Flock was pure, raspy, demonic energy. Dropping anthems like Op Spotter and Brotherly Love, his booming delivery felt like a panic attack on a beat. Throughout 2021, it was a musical ping-pong match of trauma and talent. One side would drop a track naming dead rivals, and the other would match the disrespect within weeks over increasingly wild samples. This toxic back and forth forced both to innovate, building the Bronx drill sound in real time. By late 2021, millions of views turned into major label deals, and the underground war went mainstream. But the reality behind the lyrics caught up just as stardom opened its doors. Within months, K-Flock was arrested on a murder charge, and D-Thang was locked up on a federal indictment. They elevated a genre to the world stage, but the streets took them before they could truly enjoy the crown.
After 27 years on death row and surviving 3 execution dates, Richard Glossip was just granted bond. This is a historic, almost unheard of shift in the Oklahoma legal system. Here's why this matters today. This isn't just about one man, it's about the integrity of the process. The U.S. Supreme Court recently vacated his conviction because prosecutors admitted their star witness lied. When the state itself says, "We messed up," the entire system has to hit the brakes. From a strategy perspective, look at the legal maneuvering here. Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond did something rare. He supported Glossip's bid for a new trial. It shows that even in the most rigid business, which the legal system is, admitting a critical error is sometimes the only way to save the brand's credibility. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Even with a $500,000 bond and an ankle monitor, Glossip is still facing a retrial. The state isn't seeking the death penalty this time, but they aren't letting him walk away for good either. After 3 decades and multiple trips to the execution chamber, is a retrial even practical, or is it time for the state to just walk away? Drop a comment below. Let's debate it.
Operation Mousetrap sounds like a movie title. But in Miami, federal agents say it was a real takedown tied to over 500 kilos of cocaine, millions in cash, and a luxury high-rise in Midtown. According to the DOJ, 5 South Florida men were charged in a cocaine trafficking conspiracy connected to an international route moving drugs from Colombia through the Dominican Republic into South Florida. Federal investigators say the network wasn't just moving small bags. They were dealing in kilogram-level cocaine. The biggest hit came when agents searched a Midtown Miami luxury apartment and say they found about 536 kilos of cocaine, 14 firearms, including an unserialized AK-style weapon, and roughly $3.1 million in cash. And this case may be bigger than one apartment. Investigators say related operations identified networks moving up to 1,700 kilos by fishing vessels. Now the defendants face federal charges, but remember, these are allegations, and everyone is presumed innocent unless proven guilty. Question: is Miami still America's biggest cocaine gateway? A prison gang order, a missing woman, and a wooded area behind a house in Seminole County, Oklahoma. Matthew Onesimo Armstrong was tied to the Indian Brotherhood, a prison-based gang active in Oklahoma. But this case wasn't just prison politics. It spilled into the outside world. In 2017, prosecutors say Armstrong believed Nicole Owl had stolen drugs and money. He and another man took her into the woods, tied her to a tree, left her there for hours. Then Armstrong came back with a rifle and shot her twice. But that wasn't the only case. Armstrong was also connected to the 2015 killing of Scotty Candler, where prosecutors say he went to Candler's home under orders from the Indian Brotherhood. In 2023, Armstrong was sentenced to life in federal prison for Nicole Owl's murder, plus additional time tied to drugs, assault, and firearms charges. This is what people forget about prison gangs. The walls don't always contain them. Sometimes the orders, fear, and violence walk right out into the community. Do you think prison gangs are underestimated as organized crime groups? Follow OC Street Files, because the street doesn't always start on the street.
Appleton, Wisconsin. Not exactly where you expect gang violence. But in the late 90s, a group of suburban teens tried to build one anyway. Influenced by rap videos, street culture, and the idea of respect, they created their own identity, one they didn't fully understand. It started as imitation, clothes, slang, attitudes, but imitation turned into ego. Ego turned into conflict, and conflict turned deadly. What happened next shocked the entire city. A situation involving teens spiraled into murder and loss that never should have happened. All over an identity they were borrowing, not living.
Thug life, something we've lived for, and something he had to die for.
Shane Gray, LD, and Mitch, they're reality. And what happened to them is reality. And if anybody thinks that it's not, they need to come and see when they in that
car. He died for this, because he has some respect and a little love.
Psychologists call it identity adoption. Young men searching for power, respect, and belonging. But when you mix insecurity with a violent image, the consequences become real. Now lives are gone, families destroyed, and one question remains. Were they influenced, or did they choose this? We are going live this weekend to break down the full case. Tap in. They didn't start as kings. They started as thieves in the shadows of Montreal. In the 1950s, a group of Irish-Canadian criminals from Pointe-Saint-Charles began hijacking trucks, robbing banks, and running the streets so aggressively that Montreal earned a reputation as the bank robbery capital of North America. But that was just the beginning. West End Gang wasn't just another crew, they evolved. By the 1970s, they had taken control of the port of Montreal, turning it into a pipeline for drugs flowing in from across the world. Under bosses like Frank Dooney Ryan and Alan the Weasel Ross, the gang linked up with international cartels, moving massive shipments of cocaine and becoming one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Canada. Murders, betrayals, and billion-dollar drug routes followed. And even when leaders were killed or locked up, The empire never really disappeared. So here's the question. How does a gang survive decades of war, arrests, and assassinations and still stay relevant today? The Maurice "Mom" Boucher wasn't just building a biker empire. He was forcing one into existence. In early 1994, he pressured bars controlled by the Rock Machine to either hand over their drug operations or face violent consequences. That pressure exploded on July 14, 1994, when two members of the Rockers, a puppet club tied to the Hells Angels, walked into a Montreal motorcycle shop and executed a Rock Machine associate. That killing didn't just send a message, it ignited what became known as the Quebec Biker War. While Boucher became the public face of the conflict, the real power behind the scenes was Hells Angels national president Walter Stadnik. Stadnik stayed low-key, rarely mentioned in media, partly due to his severe facial burns from a past crash. The two leaders divided responsibilities. Boucher handled the war in Quebec, while Stadnik expanded operations across Canada. Despite leading the same organization, language barriers meant they often needed interpreters just to communicate, exposing a strange but effective partnership. The feds just broke the silence in Columbus. They're calling it Operation Sweet Silence, and it just dismantled the entire hierarchy of the Zohannan gang in one night. For months, the streets were quiet, too quiet. While the Zohannans thought they were running the city undetected, federal agents were sitting in unmarked cars and listening to every single phone call. They didn't just want the dealers, they wanted the entire paperwork on the kingpins. 18 USC 1962. That's the RICO statute the DOJ just dropped on them. We're talking dozens of arrests, 50+ firearms seized, and enough fentanyl to shut down a zip code. The indictment alleges this wasn't just a gang. It was a coordinated criminal enterprise with a reach that went way beyond Ohio. But here is the detail the news missed. Page 22 of the filing mentions a cooperating witness inside the inner circle. The silence wasn't just coming from the feds, it was coming from inside the house. Is this the end of the Zohannans, or is a new power struggle about to begin? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is OC Street Files, where the paperwork tells the real story. Follow for the next update.
The wildest scam in high school sports history might be Bishop Sycamore High School, and it played out live on national TV. Back in 2021, this school showed up on ESPN to face powerhouse IMG Academy and got destroyed 58-0. But the real story started after the game. People began asking, what is Bishop Sycamore? Turns out nobody really knew. No real campus, no real classes. Some players weren't even high school students. They were grown men in their 20s. Players said they were promised exposure and scholarships, but ended up living in hotels, sometimes without food, and even playing injured with no trainers. The head coach, Roy Johnson, was facing lawsuits, unpaid bills, and even an arrest warrant. The state of Ohio later ruled the whole thing was basically a scam. So the question is, how did a fake school make it onto national TV? And who really failed those kids? Kawasi Balagoon wasn't just another name tied to the Black Liberation Army. He was one of the most militant and ideological figures of the entire movement. Born in Maryland, Balagoon became deeply involved in radical politics during the 1960s and 70s, eventually aligning with the BLA, a group the government labeled as a domestic terrorist organization. But to some, they were revolutionaries fighting systemic oppression. Balagoon was connected to a series of armed robberies and was later implicated in the 1981 Brinks armored truck robbery in New York, where 2 police officers and a security guard were killed. He was captured, convicted, and sentenced to decades behind bars. But what made Balagoon different wasn't just the violence, it was the ideology. He openly identified as a revolutionary, even writing about anarchism and Black liberation while incarcerated. He never backed down from his beliefs. In 1986, he died in prison from complications related to AIDS. So the question is, was Kawasi Balagoon a dangerous extremist, or a man who truly believed he was at war for his people? Phoenix isn't just a drug city, it's a pipeline. And one of the biggest cases to come out of it wasn't some cartel boss in Mexico. It was a father and son running an empire right in the city. The Monarez drug trafficking organization moved millions of fentanyl pills, meth, and cocaine from cartel suppliers straight through Phoenix and into cities across the country. Authorities say this wasn't random dealing. This was structured, a full network, distributors, supply chains, money moving quietly. And here's what makes it different. Prosecutors didn't just charge them with trafficking. They hit them with the kingpin statute, a charge usually saved for the highest level drug bosses. That means the feds believed this wasn't just a hustle. This was leadership at the top of a major operation. So while everybody looks at flashy cartel names, some of the biggest players are right here in U.S. cities, moving product under the radar. If you're in Phoenix, do you think operations like this are still active today? Phoenix isn't. Kansas City didn't always look like this. The violence you're seeing now, a lot of it traces back to one thing: fentanyl. This isn't just another drug wave. This changed the entire game. Fentanyl is cheap, easy to move, and insanely addictive. That means more money, faster. And when money moves faster, so does violence. Small neighborhood crews that used to hustle weed or pills are now fighting over fentanyl territory like it's gold. One bad batch can kill multiple people, and now you've got revenge shootings, debt killings, and paranoia driving the streets. Crews don't trust each other, buyers don't trust dealers, and everybody's armed. Kansas City sits in the middle of the country, which makes it a perfect hub for distribution coming from cartel pipelines. So now you've got local gangs plugged into something way bigger than them. And when that supply is threatened, people die. This isn't just drugs anymore. It's survival, reputation, and control. The real question is, who's actually running it, and how deep does it go? Follow OC Street Files and tap in on YouTube for the full breakdown. They weren't supposed to last, but right in the middle of Chicago, a small crew carved out territory that put them face to face with giants. The Gangster Party people didn't start as some massive structured organization. They started as a tight-knit group of individuals. Names like Stoney, Guero, Maniac, Rascal, and Ape. Just a handful of guys holding down a block near 55th and Maplewood, right by Gage Park High School. And that location? That was everything. Because being that close to a school, and more importantly, that close to rival territory, meant pressure came fast. The Latin Kings, already established in the area, didn't like the party people setting up just a block away. So from the very beginning, this wasn't just about hanging out or claiming a name. It was about survival. No large numbers, no deep structure yet. Just a small crew-building identity in a dangerous pocket of Chicago, surrounded by bigger, more powerful gangs. And that pressure? That's exactly what would shape what they became next. Who knows about the party people of Chicago? Drop a comment. Most people think gangs start with crime, but this one started with football. Back in 1963, in Chicago's East Village, a group of Puerto Rican kids were just trying to stay out the way. Playing football near Ashland and Walton, no gang ties, no street agenda. By 1965, they gave themselves a name, the Ashland Vikings. But here's where it flips. As gangs like the Latin Kings and Playboys flooded the area, these kids kept getting pressed. Recruitment, harassment, and straight-up attacks for refusing to join. At some point, running wasn't an option anymore. So a 13-year-old known as Puncher made a decision that changed everything. He turned that football team into a street gang. And just like that, the Ashland Vikings were born, fighting back against bigger, more established crews, using whatever they had to survive, even homemade weapons. But here's the real question. Were they created to survive the streets, or did the streets create them to become something else? Follow for part 2. Davenport wasn't just dealing with random shootings. It had its own gang, Savage Life, and they were moving like it was Chicago. When people talk about violence in Davenport, they don't always say the name. Savage Life Boys, a real street gang based in Davenport. And according to federal prosecutors, this wasn't just a group, it was an enterprise. We're talking structure, members, reputation, and in that world, your name only means something if you're willing to prove it. Between 2016 and 2017, investigators say Savage Life members were involved in multiple shootings across the city. One case, a man sitting in his car on North Division Street. A Savage Life member walks up and fires multiple rounds into the vehicle. Another incident, a rival spotted at North Park Mall. They didn't let it go. They went to get guns, came back, and chased him through the parking lot, shooting at him in public. But the one that really shows how deep it went, a concert in Davenport turns into chaos. An altercation breaks out over disrespect to the gang, and someone gets shot and killed. That's the part people don't understand. This wasn't random violence. According to the feds, these shootings were done to maintain or increase status inside the gang. That means every trigger pull was about rank, power, fear. And when the feds stepped in, they didn't come for one person. They built a racketeering case. Names like Najawan Marcus Quinn, sentenced to 34 years. Dimitri Alexander Smith, sentenced to 33+ years. Others got hit too. Austin Ruiz, Olajuwon Culbreth, Darian Gardner, decades across the board. Because once it becomes a gang case, it's not just what you did, it's what the group did. Now think about this. You got Chicago 2 hours away, major drug pipelines running through the Midwest, and a smaller city like Davenport. And suddenly, you've got a gang operating like a system. So the question is, did Savage Life build this on their own? Or were they part of something bigger moving through the region? Do gangs like this grow naturally in smaller cities? Or are they influenced by bigger cities like Chicago? Follow OC Street Files, because this story don't stop here. 4 men, 1 investigation, and the FBI just stepped into Rockford like this was a full-blown cartel case. But was it really that serious? Or something bigger at play? According to federal prosecutors, this wasn't just street-level dealing. This was a targeted FBI investigation involving surveillance, undercover buys, and even wiretaps. The names: Amjad Al-Sadoun, Ahmed Al-Sadoun, Namario Haley, Will Evans. Feds say these 4 were running a cocaine operation right here in Rockford, enough to bring in federal conspiracy and distribution charges. We're talking undercover agents making buys, phones being tapped, movements being tracked. Now here's where it gets interesting, because on paper, it sounds like a mid-level drug ring, not a cartel, not a multi-state empire, just 4 guys allegedly moving cocaine locally. But the FBI still stepped in, and that raises a real question. When does something go from a local case to a federal case? Because once the feds pick it up, everything changes. No bonds like state cases, longer sentences, and a conviction rate that's already stacked against you. This case was built like a major operation. Wiretaps, controlled buys, coordinated arrests. That's not how you treat small-time activity. That's how you build a conspiracy case. So either this operation was bigger than what's being reported, or this is part of something else entirely. Do you think this was a serious drug operation? Or are the feds starting to crack down harder on smaller crews? Follow for real cases, real breakdowns, and stories they don't fully explain. 4 feds say this wasn't just a gang. It was a confederation of 3 crews moving as one. We're talking Kansas City, where leaders of the Parkside Greasies, Click Clack Gang, and South Benton Gang allegedly joined forces to form what they called the South Park Click. And here's the crazy part. Prosecutors say they literally documented their alliance in a 2013 song, bragging about shootings and telling people to stay silent. According to the indictment, this group wasn't playing. Drug trafficking across multiple substances including fentanyl, meth, and heroin, multiple murder plots and attempts, shootings meant to build fear and reputation. One leader allegedly even put out a contract on arrival, with multiple members trying and failing to carry it out over time. And this is where it gets real. This wasn't random violence. Feds say it was organized, strategic, and long-running, dating back to at least 2008. That's how RICO hits different, because once they prove it's an enterprise, everybody pays for everything. Question: do you think music like this is just expression or evidence waiting to be used? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Follow for real breakdowns of federal cases, gang structures, and how these operations actually get taken down. Before the crowns, before the gold and black, they were just kids trying not to get jumped. Early 1960s, Chicago, Puerto Rican youth were being targeted in neighborhoods like Humboldt Park and the boulevards. Outnumbered, outmatched, and ignored by police, they did what the streets always forced you to do. They formed their own protection. One of the earliest groups tied to what would become the Latin Kings was the Mar Kings, built around young Latino men looking to defend themselves. But this wasn't random. Leadership started forming early. Names like Ramon King Blood Santos begin surfacing as early influencers tied to the foundation and early identity of the group as it evolved. By 1966, multiple neighborhood crews merged, including the 23rd Street Boys and 26th Street Jokers, forming a new identity, the Latin Kings. And here's the key. They didn't just form to fight. They formed to organize. That's what made them different from the start. Question: do gangs really start as protection, or is that just how they justify it later? Follow for more. Part 2 breaks down how one leader helped turn them into a structured empire.
I asked you if you wanted to take the vehicle.
I asked you to get off of my property!
Because you were asked to be
I
nice?
asked you to get off of my property!
I will never know peace because of this case. I will never know peace.
They said it was just jealousy, but this might have been something deeper. Dayton Webber is back in the spotlight, and new details are starting to paint a different picture of what led up to that killing. According to emerging reports and street talk, the victim may have had a past relationship with Webber's girlfriend. Now think about that. This wasn't just a random altercation or some quick argument that got out of hand. If that connection is real, it suggests this could have been personal, built on tension, pride, and possibly obsession. Because let's be honest, situations like this don't just explode overnight. There's usually buildup, looks, words, rumors, and in certain environments, that kind of disrespect, real or perceived, can turn deadly fast. But here's the bigger question. Was this about love, ego, or control? Because if the motive really ties back to a relationship triangle, then this wasn't just violence, it was targeted. And that changes everything. What do you think? Was this premeditated or just emotions boiling over? The Old West wasn't just outlaws and legends. Sometimes it was pure terror. In the summer of 1895, the Rufus Buck Gang tore through Indian Territory on a short but vicious crime spree that left robbery, rape, and murder behind them. The gang was made up of Rufus Buck, Lewis Davis, Sam Sampson, Mayoma July, and Lucky Davis, young men of Creek and African-American background, operating in a time when Indian Territory was already boiling with racial tension, broken promises, and lawlessness. Rufus Buck reportedly hated the flood of white intruders moving into Indian Territory, but whatever political anger may have fueled him, the gang's actions became straight-up brutality. Their spree began after the killing of Deputy U.S. Marshal John Garrett in July 1895, then escalated into attacks on settlers and others across the region before they were captured near Muskogee by lawmen and Creek Light Horse officers. They were tried in federal court before Judge Isaac Parker, convicted, and all 5 were hanged in Fort Smith on July 1st, 1896. The case still stands out because the Rufus Buck Gang became one of the most infamous outlaw groups in Indian Territory history, and one of the darkest. Like and repost if you want to see more videos about outlaws. Who should we cover next? How does a man accused of running a national criminal empire only get 2.5 years? David Bart. Barbado led the Pagans Motorcycle Club for nearly 20 years, one of the most powerful outlaw biker groups in the U.S. In 2009, federal prosecutors hit him with a massive RICO case involving 55 members. The charges? Kidnapping, robbery, extortion, and conspiracy to commit murder, all tied to consolidating power across the East Coast. Feds also tied him to illegal money-making schemes and serious weapons violations, including a handgun with no serial number and an unregistered street sweeper shotgun. He pleaded guilty in 2010. The sentence? Just 30 months. That's right. 2.5 years for a man accused of sitting at the top of a nationwide criminal operation. Here's the real question. Was this a strategic move by the feds to dismantle the entire organization, or did the leader walk away way too easy? He killed a 15-year-old, then hugged the boy's mother on camera like he was grieving too. Fernando Nando Madrigal wasn't just another norteño, he was playing both sides. In San Francisco's Mission District, he ran with the Locos Northside clique. But in public, he posed as an anti-violence activist. July 2019, Madrigal used an AR-style rifle to kill Davon Han, an innocent kid mistaken for a rival. 11 days later, he stood at a rally and hugged the victim's mother. She had no idea. This wasn't his only body. In 2018, he lured another man to a fake weed deal, shot him, and dumped the body in the Oakland Hills. Even locked up, the violence didn't stop. Stabbings, scams, manipulation. He just got 33 years federal. This ain't just gang violence. This is calculated deception. Question: is this one of the coldest betrayals you've seen, or does this happen more than we think? Make sure to follow the page for more original content. Street Files. They're deep in Sur 13 territory, outnumbered, outgunned, but still holding ground. In Central Florida, Norteños 14, loyal to the Nuestra Familia prison system, have carved out a small but dangerous presence. Compared to Sureños, Tango Blast, and local crews, their numbers are limited, but their reputation isn't. Counties like Hillsborough, Polk, and Manatee have all seen documented Norteño activity, and law enforcement made it clear they were watching. Operation Red Dawn took down a major Norteño cell. 11 members convicted for violent crimes, including homicide, robbery, and drive-by shootings. Some received up to 15 years. They move under familiar symbols, red colors, the number 1414, and the Huelga bird. But in Florida, they're surrounded by enemies. And now, authorities say bigger threats like Sureños and Tren de Aragua are taking priority. But here's the question: are Norteños quietly rebuilding, or just waiting for the right moment? Everybody talks about Chicago. But what if I told you one of the deadliest gang wars in the world is happening in Scotland, and bodies are dropping in Spain? This is the war between the Lyons crime family and the Daniel crime family. And this ain't no street beef. This is organized crime on an international level. It started in Glasgow, but it didn't stay there. Both families built their empires through cocaine trafficking, money laundering, and contract violence. But once the pressure hit in the UK, they expanded operations into Spain, specifically the Costa del Sol, where European gangsters move money, hide out, and settle scores. And that's when things got bloody. We're talking targeted assassinations in broad daylight, firebombings, and hitmen flying in and out of countries like it's business travel. One of the most wanted figures tied to this war, Stephen Lyons, was on the run internationally before finally being arrested in Bali in 2026. Let that sink in. A Glasgow gang leader hiding in Southeast Asia while his organization is tied to violence in Europe. That tells you how deep this goes. Meanwhile, members connected to the Daniel side have also been targeted in Spain, with multiple murders linked back to this same feud. And here's what makes this different from US gang culture. This isn't about blocks. This is about networks. These are families moving like corporations, drug routes across countries, safe houses in luxury areas, encrypted communication, hit squads on standby, no social media dissing, no loud presence, just quiet, calculated, violence. And the scariest part, tourists have been caught near these shootings, meaning this war isn't just gang versus gang anymore. It's spilling into the public. If gangs are moving internationally like this, do you think law enforcement is really in control or just reacting?
Mary Fields, or Stagecoach Mary, was the first African-American woman and only the second woman overall to be a star route mail carrier in the United States. Born into slavery in Tennessee around 1832, she received her freedom at the end of the Civil War. After working on a variety of jobs, Mary took employment with a convent in Toledo. She grew very close to one nun, Sister Amadeus, and was saddened when the nun left for a Jesuit mission in Montana. When Sister Amadeus contracted pneumonia, Mary Fields rushed to Montana to care for her and stayed for 10 years with the mission. She started out doing general repairs, laundry, and other types of manual labor, and worked her way up to become the forewoman. Standing at 6 feet and around 200 pounds, Mary was an imposing figure and would not tolerate disrespect from anyone. She was forced to leave the convent after tensions boiled over and led to a brawl with another worker on her team. In 1895, she became the second female mail carrier in the country. She was then in her 60s. Mary earned the nickname Stagecoach Mary for her reliability and bravery through all conditions of what was a very dangerous job. After she retired from her Star Route contract, Mary settled in Cascade as its only African-American resident. She was well known and popular in her city for her accurate shot, her cigar, her whiskey, her kindness, and her charity. Mary was the exception to rules and social norms in Cascade. When a law was passed barring women from saloons, the mayor granted Mary an exception, and as she didn't know her birth date, the town celebrated her birthday twice a year.
Cincinnati just got hit with another federal gun crackdown, and this one tells you everything about where the city is right now. Federal prosecutors just announced charges against 9 additional defendants, all from Cincinnati, in a violent crime reduction push tied to repeat offenders and illegal firearms. We're talking convicted felons allegedly caught with guns, 2 young defendants accused of having Glock switches that can turn pistols into machine guns, and 1 man who allegedly ditched a handgun while running from police, only to be found with another firearm after getting tased. And what stands out is this ain't even happening in a vacuum. These 9 cases were announced right after federal charges tied to the Fountain Square shooting from October 2025 and the Riverfront live mass shooting on March 1st, 2026, where 9 people were wounded. That tells me the feds believe Cincinnati's gun problem isn't random anymore. They're treating it like a pattern. And once Glock switches, repeat violent offenders, and public shootings start showing up in the same conversation, people are going to start asking whether this is just street beef, gang politics, or the kind of energy that gets amplified in drill culture. Now, to be clear, the DOJ release does not say these 9 new cases are tied to a gang or to drill music specifically. But let's be real. When the streets, the image, the music, and the need for reputation all start feeding each other, the violence usually isn't far behind. Do you think cases like this are mostly about individual felons getting caught with guns? Or is this really about gangs, street politics, and drill culture feeding the violence?
Everybody saw the pictures, the guns, the luxury, the body, and the rumors. Claudia Ochoa Felix became known online as La Emperatriz de los Antrax. But here's the part people need to understand. Reports about her being a real leader inside Los Antrax were widely circulated, yet she publicly denied being involved in organized crime. What is documented is that she became famous as a social media personality from Culiacan, and after Chino Antrax was arrested, rumors exploded that she had stepped into a bigger role. Now, who were Los Antrax? They were described by U.S. authorities as an enforcement group tied to the Sinaloa cartel. Their alleged job was not just looking scary for pictures. Prosecutors said Chino Antrax and his people provided security for narcotics shipments, carried out enforcement operations, and participated in cartel violence and intimidation. In plain English, they were the muscle, the armed wing. The people used to protect shipments, send messages, and handle enemies. That's why Claudia's image hit so hard online. She looked like an influencer, but the internet painted her like a narco queen. Fast cars, weapons, private jets, designer fashion, it all fed the mythology. Then, in 2019, she was found dead in Culiacan, and even then, the rumors kept going. Reports cited an apparent overdose, but because of the Los Antrax story, people instantly assumed something darker. So was Claudia Ochoa Felix really a cartel boss, or was she a woman swallowed by the legend the internet built around her? And how many times do rumors become fact just because the image looks believable?
They called her the Al Capone of Washington, D.C., a woman who built an empire in a time when black women weren't supposed to have power at all. Odessa Madre ran the streets in the 1930s and 40s, bootlegging liquor, running gambling operations, and owning multiple bawdy houses across D.C. At her peak, she was making over $100,000 a year. Celebrities like Billie Holiday and Count Basie came through her club. Gangsters respected her. Even police knew her name. And while she was deep in the underworld, she also helped people, giving money to the poor, housing men fresh out of prison, and even mediating disputes to keep violence down. She once said, Crime pays. It opens doors. But here's the part that hits different. When she died in 1990, she was broke. No fortune left. No big funeral. Just $51 scraped together by friends to bury a woman who once had everything. All that power. Gone. So tell me this. Did she lose it all in the end? Or did she spend her life giving it away?
What if I told you one of the biggest marijuana trafficking rings in American history was run by a respectable suburban family and a yogurt franchise? Back in the late 1970s, federal investigators uncovered a massive drug operation called the Yogurt Connection. The group was run out of Indianapolis by Linda Leary and her two sons, Paul and Richard Heilbrunn. On the surface, they looked like model citizens, running health food businesses, raising money for charities, and moving comfortably among local politicians and civic leaders. But behind the scenes, prosecutors say they were running a huge marijuana empire. Authorities estimate the operation moved around 250,000 pounds of marijuana from Colombia, Jamaica, and Thailand across more than 11 states, generating somewhere between $50 and $100 million in profits. The money was so big that people counting the cash were reportedly told not to even bother with $1 bills. The operation finally collapsed after informants started talking, and federal indictments came down in the late 1980s. But here's the real question. How does a high-profile civic leader and her sons secretly run one of the largest drug rings in America for years without anyone noticing?
Most people know about the Vice Lords, but very few people remember the gang that existed before them, the Imperial Chaplains. And one decision they made in the 1950s may have helped create one of Chicago's most powerful street organizations. The Imperial Chaplains formed on Chicago's near west side around the Maxwell Street Market area during the late 1940s and early 1950s. Like many early street groups of that era, they started as neighborhood clubs made up of young black men trying to protect their blocks during a time of racial tension and shifting neighborhoods. But it didn't take long before these clubs turned into territorial gangs. By the mid-1950s, the Chaplains had grown into a serious force in North Lawndale. They battled other neighborhood groups for control of parks, streets, and local hangouts. One of the rival groups in the area was the 14th Street Clovers, and conflicts between the two gangs became common as both tried to dominate the west side. Around 1957, a young man named Edwin Pepilo Perry tried to join the Imperial Chaplains. Instead of letting him in, the Chaplains turned him away. At the time, it probably seemed like nothing, just another rejected recruit. But Perry didn't disappear. While locked up in juvenile detention soon after, he connected with other young men from North Lawndale and helped form a new gang, the Vice Lords. When Perry and the others returned to the streets in 1959, they were determined to take over territory. And one of their main targets became the Imperial Chaplains. The battles between the two gangs quickly turned violent. One street fight became infamous when Vice Lords reportedly captured a chaplain leader known as Bo Chest during a clash. The attack was so brutal that the story spread across neighborhoods and even inside prisons. That moment seriously damaged the chaplain's reputation and boosted the fear surrounding the Vice Lords. As word spread,